Hello and welcome to Persyou The Talks, brought to you by Persyou, a bespoke leadership and transition coaching company with a mission to create, nurture and develop inspiring leadership across the global education sector. My name is Mckie, Associate Professor, Certified Professional Coach and Director of Persyou. In this series of conversations, we will bring you cutting-edge stories from across the global education sector, delving into the minds of recognised leaders to find out about the challenges and main issues they are facing and how they are responding in times of uncertainty. My guest today is Di Riley, Head of Boarding and Pastoral Care at Letovo School, a unique boarding school in Russia. Di has extensive experience in the boarding world, working in the UK and most other continents aside from South America, I think. Di doesn't take herself too seriously, but extremely serious about boarding and pastoral care. Di, thanks so much for joining me. How are you today?
Absolutely delighted to talk to you, Nick, as always.
It's wonderful to see your face, Di.
Well, you know, normally it's face-to-face. You're right. This is unusual for us. So as soon as this is over, let's get you back over here. We need you here again.
Thanks, Di. I very much like your pink cardigan. For those listeners, it's extremely bright. It's wonderful.
It's springtime in Moscow.
There you are, you see. Very nice, Di.
And you know, you're absolutely right. We call this place remarkable. It's brand new. As you know, we have a founder who put in place this amazing endowment fund. And about 85% of our students are on some kind of bursary. The school was set up for gifted and talented children across the Russian Federation. And that's how boarding came to be here. His children had been at boarding schools in the UK, loved it, gone on to do terribly well. And that was part of his vision. So I'm here with a team of overseas staff. And we're working under the NMS and keeping children safe in education. We were accredited by the BSA last December. So yeah, it's a remarkable place. And we were so pleased that you visited last year, and we definitely want you back whenever the borders reopen.
It's an amazing campus, isn't it, I mean, I remember when I first saw it, it looks a bit like a university. With that track and everything else, you know.
Yeah, and to be honest, it's a little bit like, to be honest, that is a good explanation. The children here are very free to choose their own learning pathways, and the relationship between the adults and the children is very palpable. It's a real learning partnership here. It's unlike anything else I've ever been involved in. And I feel so lucky to be leading the boarding here. It's incredible. And as you know, I love having visitors. I love showing off our school, and always the first thing I do is I ask my student leaders to take our visitors on the tour, because out of the mouths of babes, they're going to tell you exactly as it is. And we're certainly very proud of our boarding student leaders. We started out with a boarding committee, which was chosen by the kids, representatives of all grades. Then we went on and asked for our most senior students to be ambassadors, and now we have our very first set of boarding prefects. So yeah, we're super proud of this place.
And you've got students from all over Russia, haven't you, Di?
Yes, the students have to have a Russian passport. So we do actually have a couple of children who actually live overseas, but they are Russian nationals. But yeah. Okay. And you know, that's the mission of the school is to give these children an opportunity to have a world-class education with an international outlook. And I think after a year in business, we've got some very, very happy stakeholders. So yeah, it just gets better every day, to be honest.
And have you got two curriculums? So you said that international outlook. Do you have like a Russian curriculum with Russian teachers, and then do you deliver the curriculum in English as well?
Yes, they started the IBDP program, this beginning of this academic year. And that works alongside the Russian curriculum. And right now, one of our challenges is the state exams in Russia, in Russian language and mathematics, is held towards the end of this semester. And of course, all of our children are at home with their families because we're currently all self-isolating, as many other countries are. So the big challenge for SLT right now is to work out, will we have to do this online? Will we be at a point where we can bring our children back to boarding? So yeah, that's definitely one of our challenges right now, surrounding education and exam taking.
So how long have your students been away? I think you mentioned since spring break.
Yeah, they went home towards, oh gosh, they've been home a month now. Yeah.
Right.
They went home for spring break, and then the week after spring break, we were piloting the online teaching and learning aspect.
How's that gone?
Well, I have to say, I mean, we have such dedicated academic staff here. And our IT support, I mean, honestly, has been first class. So yeah, I think it's been a very positive start. We're very quick here to react to issues, and I think that's very important. Anyway, you've got to rely on every member of your team, and the support that my team have been able to give is obviously in the region of safeguarding.
Sure.
A year ago, one of my dreams came to be, which was to take on a boarding counsellor who worked specifically during boarding time, and it's been such a success. And in which and actually next year we will increase her department now to include a bilingual Russian trained psychologist who's got a background in boarding now with us for the last 2 years. So it's so exciting. So she and her team have been creating these wonderful guides. So she's done one for students, one for staff, one for parents. And we've been really lucky because we have friends in TABS, in BSA, Australia. We've got friends with a safeguarding consultant in the UK. We've shared those guides and they've been so well received. And I think that's very important right now, that we should share our resources.
So what exactly are in these guides, in Because I know you sent a few over for me to have a look at prior to this interview.
Yeah,
Take us through that.
Totally safeguarding. How do we move safeguarding our staff and safeguarding our students? How do we move that from a face-to-face, daily contact process and procedure to online? So we've had to keep up to date. We've got to make sure that, we are looking at all of the information from all over the world, from these, great resources. I think it's about staying in contact with, your trusted experts. And for me, that's paid dividends. I mean, as you said, I've been in the business a long time. I have always said to my staff, don't ever burn bridges. And, and this is paid dividends right now, because I can literally pick the phone up to somebody on literally 4 corners of the world, depending on the time zone. And I've got some help at my fingertips. It's incredible. And I think we have to be very careful now to share our our help.
I think that's a key area, isn't it? I was talking to one of my my guests yesterday, actually, and she said the key thing at this moment in time is to talk, to collaborate and talk, and all those connections that you've made throughout your career is to make them, bring them to fruition, just to get.
But I also think about asking the right questions, though, Nick. Just to make sure that, and especially in my case, and anybody who's listening who's working in an international setting. So, as I'm doing right now, I'm trying to marry Russian culture and curriculum with a British boarding system. So, there's going to be a clash of cultures.
Sure.
So, very often. So for me, communication is totally the tool. And so often we think we've communicated and we haven't. So for me, it's about asking the right questions. I would rather ask more questions than less. And also, I think it's really important, and I try to lead the way. I try to contextualize my request for a meeting, or when I'm collecting items for an agenda. I try to give people the context, because otherwise we lose things in translation.
So you mentioned there, Di, about that coming together of two cultures, the Russian culture and that UK with the boarding setting as well. So what are the main challenges of marrying those two cultures? Respect and trust, and I really needed to pause there for a moment. Yeah.
Because I think it is so easy to be flippant, and I think, for me, those two words, they're not flippant. Trust and respect. I mean, it makes the world go round. I look at the relationships that are being formed here between the adults and the children, and between the older students and the younger students. And it's based on those two things. And it's incredible. I mean, sometimes I get goosebumps just
Okay.
being a observer. I don't even have to be involved, but just to witness it is just out of this world.
And your boarding staff, Di, you've got a mix of UK, have you, Australian, Americans, Russians? What's the kind of makeup of your team?
Well, first of all, they're all basically top of their game. We take great care in recruiting, and we've got these wonderful different layers of care. So we have our graduate boarding assistants are either from overseas and they've just finished university and they're not quite sure what they're going to do next. But our local GBAs are bilingual, and they're just the most hardworking and such important members of our team. So they're the big brothers and sisters in the boarding house,
Yeah.
And then our assistants, again, are from all over. I mean, I've got a wonderful young Russian gentleman who is we promoted him quickly to an assistant housemaster, and he's literally, gone stratospheric with his progress here. Our housemasters and housemistresses, again, are from all over, but mainly they've had experience in the UK.
Right.
That's pretty important to me, that because we're trying to build a British system here. Our relationship with the Boarding Schools Association is so vital, they're right now. They are all producing these wonderful newsletters for the children, and I had no idea I had so many wonderful cooks and bakers. I mean, the recipes from all over the world are just getting, thrown out there to our kids. We're going to end up with, when our hub is built and we have our own home ec room, I think we're going to, we possibly could turn ourselves into a catering college.
So are these newsletters being sent out to your students? Is it like a weekly thing?
Yes.
Monthly? Okay.
Yes. So at the moment we have 8 boarding houses.
Okay.
We'll open 10 in August. And so, it's all part of building that house identity. We were able to bring this forward a little bit just because we had a bit more time without the boarders being here. And so for me, it was really important that we communicated with our boarders. And we use WhatsApp. We all have, school phones. And so we use WhatsApp to contact them anyway. So that was easy, check in with the kids perfectly. We do that, pretty much daily. And then on Fridays, we send out this, fabulous newsletter, and everyone's done their own thing. So we've got, a couple that are web-based and a couple that are paper-based. And They've all started their own house Instagrams. And then we've got this amazing girl who is, she's just finished her PhD here in Moscow. And she works as our weekend coordinator. And on a Friday, she sends out a cultural bulletin.
Okay.
And that is just, it's so much fun. I've shared that with friends with the Australian Boarding Schools Association. It's on their pages. I mean, it's so good. Maybe we could also be a tourist company. We're sharing all these, virtual tours of our most wonderful museums and galleries here in Russia through the cultural bulletin.
Oh,
So
okay. All this free then, Di, are they? All these virtual tours?
Yeah. So what she's doing, she spends the whole week researching, and then she puts a bulletin together. In fact, I'll send you one.
Yeah, please do.
After we get on this. She's done one on the Pushkin. She's done one on one of the big galleries here. I mean, they're fun, and I think that was the thing which I said to the team when we started this. We need to make sure that we keep things light. We've got that. It's tough. It's tough on the kids. It's tough on the parents. These children are used to being away from home. They're used to making up their own minds about different things, not least their academic pathways. And, they're going to be finding it tough. So let's keep our communication light and informative. But let's make sure that it's, not the same as what's coming out of our academic team. Let's make sure, that home and school, there's still that real distinction, which is what I've tried to put in place here anyway. The kids go home to their boarding house and it's different.
Yeah. I mean, what I'm curious about, Di, is when the students come back, whether that's this academic year or next, how will that impact your planning or your induction, say, for new students or returning students?
I don't think it will. I don't think it'll make too big a difference. I mean, we were very lucky last August to rely on our senior students to help us, and it was quicker, to be honest, than I expected. That our seniors would be such leading forces, in our boarding ethos and what we're trying to do here. They get traditions, they get belonging. And so, they, at the moment, they really are ambassadors for what we're doing, because, they're the clients. If you want to put it as simply as that. And it was obvious to me when we did a marketing open doors recently. The children stood up in their school kit with their buttons on, as proud as punch, and they told it as it was. And I mean, that's very powerful for incoming families to see, how real these children feel about their second home. Well, you know me well enough. I'm pretty emotional, and I'm invested in the children of the world, and they never cease to amaze me. And this group of kids in this school are just they're going to change the world. They really are. I've said it so many times. One of them will invent something. One of them will win a Nobel Prize. I just know it. Yeah.
So I mean, as you said, I mean, you've had jobs all over the world. You're a seasoned boarding expert. So how has this particular context or this particular time influenced your leadership of boarding or of your staff?
In so many ways, I've had to be braver. I'm not backwards in coming forwards. I call a spade a spade.
Certainly do,
I hold people to account. I suppose in some ways I've had to be even more pushy because safeguarding is so important to me, and so I've had to push. But in yeah, I guess in a nutshell, I've had to be a bit braver. Um, and whereas, before you would have maybe waited a little bit longer, to before you pushed, at this point I think you've got to go for it. I mean, um, when safety of the children and the staff is paramount, you can't afford to sit around and wait. So I think that's probably the best way of answering that question. Just to be brave, and to, if you feel it, you have to tell somebody, and you have to tell somebody who can make a difference. So, I am used to checking in with my principal every day in person. Well, now I have to do it, over the phone, and sometimes, I know I'm probably interrupting him, but if I need an answer, then I'll call him rather than email. And so that's probably describing how I'm a little, I have to push things, um, in different ways.
Do you think that's going to impact when you go back? I mean, people always talk about going back to normal, don't they? Whatever normal means. But when you go back, do you think these practices will impact or influence the way that you operate day to day?
Yes, I actually think that when we got here, because we were marrying these two cultures, the whole concept of safeguarding is viewed very differently here. And I think, they have, blessed them, they've all spent, 12 months listening to me bang on about safeguarding. But now, of course, it's important for them as well, because they've got teachers and IT support, for example, psychologists and the boarding counsellor, all having consultations. So safeguarding and confidentiality has really come to the forefront. And so actually everyone's gone, you know what, she makes sense, they make sense, it makes sense. And so actually I think it's this, here has been the opportunity for me in this, kind of threatening, or unusual situation. I always look for the silver lining, and for me, this is it. We, in so many ways, with safeguarding and confidentiality, during this period, we've come together. So I feel incredibly positive about, once the doors are open again. And I think that what we've proven here is the whole concept of teamwork, and how important that is.
So for other people, Di, in similar positions to you at boarding schools, whether that's in the UK or internationally, what advice would you give to them in these times of uncertainty?
Plan ahead as usual. Completely risk assess everything you do, um, and understand that this is going to pass, and we are going to go back to normal. And so, keep that in the back of your mind, as you're moving forward. Check in with your staff every day, and because they will remember that. They will remember the little things you've done, like you've asked people to tell you how they are in a particular way. So my team check in with me every day with either a green, an amber, or a red heart.
Oh, okay, right.
And
Is
so,
that on WhatsApp
and
or whatever, is it?
yeah, and that
Right.
just gives me an idea of how people are feeling. And then obviously, I can, possibly do something about it. And it gives people a way of letting you know without having to exactly spell it out. And that's been a huge success for us. People have been very courageous, every day, and I think in that way, that's going to make again another positive impact, because we've had to rely on each other, um, for our mental health, as well as our physical health.
It's a strange one, isn't it? Because it's getting that sweet spot with it, with
Mhm.
staff or students, how often do you communicate? How much is are you over dialing it? How much are you under dialing it? How do you know when you're being a bit too much, whether you're asking students to do too much at home, for example, when they can't potentially meet those expectations, when you're potentially asking staff to do or go the extra mile when they potentially can't in some situations? So it's always about feeling your way forward with that, isn't it?
And for me, it's about maintaining boundaries as well. So, for example, I didn't think it, it wouldn't be right for me to check in with the kids every day because that's not what I normally do. But it's perfectly okay for the housemasters and housemistresses to do that because it is what they do every day.
Okay.
So it's about. So for me, I would say it's about as much as possible maintaining your usual procedures and practice, just in a different environment. um, I work with all of the senses. When the kids come into my office, there's always a lovely scented smelly reeds. I've usually got music playing. There's always some yummy snacks, or fruit on the table. So we try to create this lovely ambiance when kids come to us, because by the time they come to see me, it's pretty dire. It may be that it's
Sure.
you know it's either a serious discipline situation, or it's a serious welfare situation. So for me, I want to always create that sort of ambiance. Well, I can't do that right now, because,
How do you replicate that then, Di?
well, what
Can
we've
you
tried to
replicate that?
yeah, well, what we've done is we've tried to keep our traditions alive. So we have a disco every kind of every 6 weeks or so. We call them Sparkle and Shine, and because that's kind of a fun description. And we hosted one online on Friday. um, we have this lovely tradition of midnight memories for our students. It kind of replicates the old midnight feast from boarding
Okay.
school.
Yeah.
And we did it for the first time last year, where I let the kids come out of the boarding houses at midnight until 1 a.m. and they brought their guitars and their duvets and their blankets, and we sat round a fire pit, and they talked and they hugged and they reminisced and they sang songs. And so before we went into full lockdown here, the staff and I did it one Friday, and we videoed it and sent it out to the kids. And I suppose it's just keeping the traditions going. The home fire's burning possibly is another way without burning the school down.
I'm just trying to picture you, Di, around a campfire playing the guitar.
No, 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 no. I wasn't even allowed to poke the fire. Well, you know my deputy very well. Hands off. The fire pit is mine.
Yeah, no, I do. Yeah, very much so. Very much so. I mean, I love that sense that you're keeping normality as much as you can. You're doing the same
And
things that you would do face to
fun,
face.
fun and safety. Yeah, yeah.
That's a lovely way of thinking about it. I'm also curious, Di, about recruitment in terms of safer recruitment, because I know that you've spoken a lot about that. I mean, I've seen some of your seminars around safer recruitment, and especially in this climate, when potentially if you're going to, well, I mean, we've both met, haven't we, at these search associates fairs when I've been coaching and you've been recruiting, and obviously you can't see people face to face all the time.
Well, that actually, in so many ways, that hasn't changed a whole lot for us, because we tend to recruit via video conferencing anyway.
Right.
So, we have a fairly complex system, as you know. We've gone to fairs, and we use various kind of platforms. But yeah, actually, that hasn't changed too much for us. We still recruit with a proper school application form. We have a committee. We don't recruit against CVs. We do an interview. And for our senior positions, they then have to have an interview with our principal. then there's a discussion, and yeah, so I mean, we get references in the same way. So we're we were used to doing our due diligence remotely anyway. So actually that hasn't changed a whole lot. One thing we were going to do this year was to actually go to London and try and do some recruiting, my deputy and I, in London. Now that's probably not going to happen this year, but that certainly is on the books, because we feel that, you know, we've got enough experience now, we know what we're looking for, and so that was going to be something that we would like to do in the future. But yeah, my advice is to, as far as recruiting in this situation is concerned, is you've absolutely got to do your due diligence. It's so important, and there will be a lot of movement right now. There'll be a lot of people who, you know, are in areas of the world that have been more affected. I mean, we're so safe here, to be honest. In the south of Moscow, close to this beautiful forest. I mean, it's a heavenly place. But you know, there are going to be people who are currently in large, cities, and I think we're going to see some movement, and I think that's possibly a good newsletter for you to get out to people, is, you know, how important safer recruiting is. I mean, well, you've heard me.
I have indeed, yeah. I mean, interestingly enough, and I have, it's fantastic. I mean, interestingly enough, I'm also speaking to Peter Smythe from Such Associates as part of this series of podcasts, talking about the state of recruitment and how schools are finding recruiting international teachers, students, and also from candidates as well. You know, how picky they're being, or how willing are they to actually up sticks and leave at this particular time. I mean, it's so uncertain. I know people are thinking, well, actually, you know, our school is going to go back in certain regions before the summer? And if so, do I want to then go there in August? And will there then be an isolation or quarantine before I go? Do I want to take my kids here? Is it going to be locked down again? And I think a big question is, again, now, as it always has been, I suppose, when people are moving on, is about the health benefits that they get when they move. You know, if they're taking a family somewhere, are they going to be, protected?
Yes, and so that probably is the fact that you're speaking to Peter is probably great, because that would have been one of the things I would have said is, you know, make sure if you are using an agency, that it's a reputable one. I mean, you know, we know Search Associates, they're great. I mean, they take great references. You know, they are very thorough in their screening. I mean, obviously they expect schools to do their add-on, but yeah, I think that's so important. I've been talking to a couple of companies out of the UK that I've worked with before, and again, you know, I know how thorough they are with taking references, you know, before they even pass candidates on. So yeah, I think that is probably a really good idea, to make sure you're working with a reputable company.
And again, Di, one thing that I've been asking all my guests is for their top tip for leaders in their setting at this particular time. So for you, Di, it could be, say, a boarding school or head of boarding. What would be your top tip for them?
I would say that they need to keep up with the advice of the lawmakers. Make sure that they are completely up to date with advice that are coming. That, you know, so if you're in the States, you know, coming out of the different states. If you're, like for us, you know, we're following the mayor of Moscow's advice. So I think that's probably my top tip. You must keep up to date with, you know, the advice from the legislators. So yeah, and if you're in a situation where, I mean, I'm lucky, I have a wonderful bilingual PA, and so, you know, I you know, I'm not even kind of delayed because of the language, because, you know, she helps me. But yeah, I think that's probably my top tip.
Okay, brilliant. Well, what's the next things for you then, Di? So what's on the horizon the next week, next couple of weeks?
Well, I was trained as a home economist,
Yes,
and
David, I know that. Yeah.
I taught for many years. So, I mean, I can remember one of my home ec tutors saying to me because, the subject has had so many reincarnations. And I can remember her saying to me, it's going to come full circle, Di, that, us home economists, we're as rare as hen's teeth. So what am I doing right now? I am boiling chicken carcasses and making delicious soups and sharing my tips to be economical in the home on my Instagram page. So I guess it's back to grassroots, actually.
It's come full circle, Di.
Yeah, once a teacher, always a teacher,
Was it brownies? Is that what you do with your students? Is it once a week, or you make brownies for your students?
Uh, well, this is an absolute classic case of how uh, English culture or Western culture and Russian culture clashed. So I've always had brownie points. So for positive behavior, I would always
Oh,
make
okay, right.
brownies. So we had brownie points, right? But these kids here, they absolutely adore pizza. So we have pizza points. So we have little slips, and you can get pizza permission, or if they do something absolutely special, they get a pizza party. And so, yeah, we've gone from brownie points to pizza points, which is absolutely delightful.
Do you make pizza, Di?
I do. I make everything.
That's what I do.
I even make sushi. I can teach you how to make sushi rolls. Anything you want.
I've had a go at that before. Actually, it's quite mindful, quite cathartic. I find doing that kind of
Yeah,
rolling and
especially
putting things in.
you've got some nice music playing in the background, and your incense sticks burning, and
Yeah, there you
yeah,
are. You see, wonderful.
yeah, yeah.
Well, thanks very much,
Oh,
Di,
come
for
soon. Please come visit us soon. As soon as you can get on that flight, come visit us
yeah,
again.
I will do. I sort of really enjoyed the hospitality I had last time from your school and your staff was absolutely out of this world, and I still crave that restaurant. Where was that restaurant? That Georgian restaurant.
Oh, it's our local.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was
We had
absolutely superb.
So I don't know if you know, but there's an amazing company called Let's Live out of Australia, out of the Gold Coast, and they have helped us recruit our GAP students. We call them interns. And so the representative, actually is English, he came to visit us twice. And yeah, second time, I said to him, "What do you want to do?" He said, "I want to go back to that restaurant." I even have a card now where you can collect points.
Oh, brilliant.
I mean, that's how. I mean, I walk in and it's like, oh, Di's here. It's great.
That was stunning, absolutely stunning place. And
Yeah, much
that
better.
bread, lovely.
Much better than when I used to go to the local police station and they knew how I took my tea. Because so many of my students were getting into trouble. So this is a much better situation.
Yeah, how times have changed, Di, eh?
Oh my gosh, yes.
But yes, I would love to come over as soon as I can. I said working with your staff was absolutely brilliant. Yeah, I mean, I think I was delivering, it's about 40 or 45 local
Yeah.
staff. We did some training for the whole day with some translators, and they were absolutely brilliant. I mean, they're absolutely fantastic, engaged. It was wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that probably sums up, everybody who's involved in this place. We are all involved in learning.
Mm.
We all throw this comment around about lifelong learners, but honestly, I've learned more about myself since I've been here in Moscow than ever before.
Mm.
Because we live in a bubble. Unless you speak Russian, then there's a lot that you don't necessarily understand. So my verbal communication skills have improved tenfold.
Yeah, yeah. You have to, don't you? You have to adapt, Di, don't you?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think that's what's so wonderful about humans is we're so adaptable. Right now, our kids, our teachers, our pastoral staff are all adapting to this new norm. And we're all doing it in such good humor and with such commitment to our kids and to each other. So yeah, it's, teamwork it's alive and well across the world.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining me from Moscow, Di. Sorry to interrupt you. You're cooking and everything that's going on there, and very much look forward to seeing you face to face at some point soon.
And it's a date, the Georgian restaurant, for sure.
Fantastic. You can get some more points on your card, Di.
Yes, I will.
Well, thank you so much for joining me, Di, and take care of yourself, and we'll be in touch.
I will. See you soon.
Thanks, Di. Thanks very much.
Bye.
Thanks. Okay, so many thanks to Di. If you are interested in finding out more about the leadership coaching at Persyou, or would like to connect to discuss any of the topics on the show, please send me an email at nick@persyou.com, nick@persyou.com, or visit our website, persyou.com. You can also follow us at LinkedIn, Nicholas Mckie, or Persyou as well. Take care and look forward to bringing you more conversations again soon.